And welcome back to Front End Hero. So in the previous video, we worked on the testimonials area, and we only have one last piece of the puzzle to complete for the homepage, and that is the footer. Now, this shouldn't take up too much time. All we have is 4 columns, and then we've got some social links, some normal kind of text links, and a newsletter area. So let's get started. And the very first thing I'm going to do is to pop into our index.html file and to create the footer area. And I always like to give my footers an ID, so I'm going to call this one footer primary. Then inside just a wrapper as per our previous sections. And I'll just pop in some footer text here. That's displaying fine. Okay, great. And now I'm going to create the grid section. So we'll say div class is grid row. And of course, we're going to give it a gap here to separate the 4 different columns. And as we have 4 columns, we need to give a span3 class to each of those columns. So I'm going to copy these here and paste them so we have 4 columns now. Okay, fantastic. Now a quick check of the visual, just to check the headings here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to give a name for each column here. And the first one will be get in touch -footer. So I'm just going to append a -footer to it. Okay, so I think our next section is going to be our services. And again, I'll append the -footer. The next section after that will be probably another text kind of link section. And that will be called maybe site navigation with some generic links such as home, about us, contact, etc. And our very last column in the footer will be something like newsletter. And again, I'm just going to append -footer to all of these classes. And the reason I create these classes and added them in as kind of column names is because when we get down to the mobile view, it's just easier to target each column in case I want to hide one or manipulate one or stuff like that. Right. So next step, as per the visual, we've got these headings here, and I'm going to add these in now, probably as H4 headings, but we can see how they look live in a moment. So I'm just going to pop them into each column now. And again, we're just going to use a H4 tag for the moment. And we'll pop in get in touch for our first column, and then we'll just copy and paste this for the other 3. Now, next column is our services. And the following one is probably, site navigation. And then the last one is the newsletter, but I think I'm just going to call it maybe something like stay connected. Yeah. Okay, so all those headings are in place now, and I think the size is perfect. So I'm going to leave them at H4. Right, so with the headings in place, let's concentrate on the first column here, and that is the get in touch area. So we can see that we've got some text above and some social links at the bottom. So I'm going to go to lipson.com and I'm going to get some text for this area. Okay, and pop that in. Okay, so it's probably a little bit too long. Let me just trim some words here at the end. Okay, so now everything fits on 3 lines. So next we can add in our social media. Actually, no, sorry, they aren't social media icons. I think I said that earlier. They're actually quick links to the telephone, email, and Skype. So let's create this area now, and we'll call it quick contact info. Inside here, we can create an unordered list where we can list our contact details. So the first one, I'm just going to pop in a list item, and I'm going to give it a wrapper of an anchor link. And the first one is a telephone number. So I'll pop in a random telephone number there. Okay, cool. So phone number is now in. Now we need the icon, which is a mobile telephone. And again, we can use the library Themify. So I'll have a quick peek for these icons here. So we've got email, mobile, and Skype. So the first one is mobile. And for these icons, I'll create a span element and then pop in the Themify class. So ti-mobile. There we go. And with that, our first list item is complete. It has an icon and some text. Let me copy and paste it for our next link, which is the email. So hello@synergy123.com, let's say. And the icon is going to be TI-email. Okay, cool. And the last one is Skype. So that is Skype Synergy. Okay, cool. So now that TI email is going to be changed to TI Skype. And there it is there. Perfect. So now we have our first column ready to go with all of our information. Now we begin the styling. So into our CSS file we go. And as we can see, we already have this section made in our table of contents. So let's go down to this area now. And let's add in the footer-primary ID first. And we'll give it a background of primary color as per our visual. Okay, so with our background in place for the footer now, basically the color is the same as our headings. So we need to change our headings to white. And I'll just create a new rule that will say all the H4s inside of our footer will be now white. Okay, so with that in place, now we can finally see our headings. Now I'm just going to give the footer some padding as we do to each of the sections on our homepage. And again, I'm just going to say padding is 4 rem top and 4 rem bottom. Okay, that's starting to look a bit better now. And next on the agenda is to play around with this paragraph tag that's in our Get in Touch column. So I'm going to say its color is white for the moment. But as we can see in the visual, the color is kind of lighter than white. So all I'll do is basically open it up in the inspector panel and play around with the color here, the alpha mode. Bring that down a touch and kind of eyeball it here. And I think that looks okay. So I'm just going to copy that value and paste it into the CSS for the paragraph tag. Yep, I think that's pretty consistent with the visual color. So what I can do is use that color that we've just created, create a new rule for the links, and then pop it in for all of the text links in our footer also. Okay, save that, and there we go. All of our links now are the same color as our paragraph text. We probably just need to create a new rule to say text decoration is none. But yeah, we're looking pretty good. So next up, we probably need to change the icons, the telephone, email, and Skype icons here to reflect the visual. So let's do that now. And just to keep things a bit more organized, I'm just going to create a small little comment area in here for this quick contact info area, I do believe it's called. Let's just have a little quick look again. Yep, quick contact info. Okay, cool. And of course, as per usual, another little red border here. And then I'm just going to create a rule to target the list items here. And the first thing I'm going to do is to create a margin bottom, probably about 1.7 rem, just to kind of give a bit more space between the links. Now I think we're just about ready to style the icons, add in the background color, give it a bit of padding, and basically just dress up each contact icon. Right, so these icons are basically spans with a themified class. So first off, I'm going to give them a minimum width and a minimum height, maybe 35 pixels. Next, I'm going to change the color of these icons here to just white because they will have a background color of a secondary color blue. So it's nice to have a bit of contrast there. Okay, so the minimum width and height are not taking effect. We can have a look at that in a moment. Next up, I'm just going to say border radius is 100 pixels to make it fully round. And then just give it a border of 2 pixels solid white. And we'll investigate why the heights and widths are not taking effect, but let's push the icons away from the text just a little bit. So we'll say margin right is 1.5 rem, and that looks good. Looking back at the markup for a second, we can see that our icons and our text is encased in an anchor link. So I'm just going to create a new rule here for this, and I'm going to give it display flex so I can kind of move it about and center align everything. So display flex. And oh, okay, that's great. And that gives us our sizes there, our 35 pixel width and height. I'm not arguing with that. That's fine. And then we'll just say align items is center to vertically align the text with our icon. And then just to vertically and horizontally align the icon, that is the span, I'm just going to say text align is center. And then basically just say line height is something like 3 rem. That looks pretty close, maybe a touch more at 3.1 rem. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we've got our icons now and we've got our text beside it. And that's basically the first column ready to go. Let's just get rid of that red border and then start on the next section, which is our services. Right, so let me copy this comment area here for this menu area. Rename it to footer menus. And then I'll create an empty class here called menu that will be added onto our navs. Okay, back into index.html. And here we can start building our unordered lists for our text links. And I'll call this UL menu. Copy that into site navigation also, and then create our list items with our links. So we're just going to copy the links from our services, which is accounting, audit, business planning, etc., etc. And this information is already up above in our primary navigation. So I'm just going to copy this list here to make it easier on ourselves. And paste it into our services there. Quick save, and they're all displaying there now. Great. I'm just going to do the same for the site navigation, and I'll just tweak the titles here. And for the site navigation area, I'm just going to use links like home, services, maybe pricing, about us, and contact. Oh, and I forgot to put in the unordered list tag. Okay, and pop the closing tag in there. Great. Okay, so what is next? So we probably should add in the bottom borders for these links here. So I'll just say all the list items inside of our nav menu, border bottom, 1 pix solid white. Okay, why is that not showing? Okay, so it's not connected. Let's have a peek in the index.html file. So we just added the class menu to the unordered list. We need to actually create the nav elements. Rookie mistake there. So I'll just create these nav elements here with the correct class of menu. And then just remove those classes from the unordered lists. Close off that tag there. And then just do the same for the site navigation area. So again, just create the nav element with the class of menu and remove it from the unordered list. Okay, now we are rocking and rolling. Right, next up, let's give the links some padding. So I'll create a new rule here to target the link inside of our nav menu. Give it a display of block so we can click the entirety of the link. And then give it a bit of padding, maybe 1.3 rem. And that looks good to me. Now, I did initially give the border a value of white, but what I'm going to do is to change the color here. And again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. So I'm just going to decrease the opacity and bring it down a touch in Google Chrome, and basically just until it looks good to me. So I'm going to go with that there. That looks fine. And then next, just remove the border from the very last menu items. And to achieve this, I'll basically edit the rule here for this border. So I'll say list item, not last child, and then that removes 2 of those borders there. Right, so that is the first 3 columns done. The last piece of this footer is the newsletter area. And I'll just go back to lipsum.com, grab some filler text, and then add it here underneath the form for the newsletter. I think that could look a little bit better. And now with some intro text for the newsletter, let's go ahead and create this form. And the first tag is form, and I'll just give it a class of newsletter. Then I'll create the input, and that will just be a type of email. And finally, for this input, I'll give it a placeholder attribute and say something like email address. Then we can give it a button here. So button tag, and inside I'll say submit. And let's add in that arrow also. So we have a class already created called button-with-arrow. So we're going to add this in now, and then automatically our arrow gets added, just like that. And that's all the markup done for the newsletter area. Now we can begin styling it. And as per the other sections, I'm just going to create a little commented area here for this newsletter. Right, first things first, let's give this bad boy a 1 pixel red border. Okay, now next up, I'm going to say display flex to put everything in line, just like that. Great. And then next, I'm just going to target the input fields, and I'll remove what little border there is there at the moment. And actually, let's get rid of that red border for the moment. It's just going to be in our way. Right, let's increase the font size of this field now. And I think I'm going to say it is 15 pixels or 1.5 rem. Yep, looks okay. And also we can see here the padding is not really uniform. So I'm going to say padding all the way around is 1.5 rem also. Next up, we can concentrate now on the button. So .newsletter button. And then I'm just going to remove the text by saying text indent is minus 9999 pixels. And then I can simply bring back the arrow by saying pseudo element after on the button, text indent 0. And there we go. Now we can see that our arrow is a tiny bit off kilter to the right hand side. So I guess that's because in our style sheet, we have some rules being associated with the button that are also being used for the BTN class. So we need to overwrite these first. And I'm just going to say padding is 0 to strip that back, just like that. And that removes everything, no problem. And then I'll just say width is 5 rem. Okay, that looks a little bit better there. Right, next up is the border radius. Now I'm going to give the border radius to the input field and the button. First up, the button. And I'm going to say border radius, top should be 0. The right hand side should have our border radius variable, borrad. And then the bottom right hand side should have the border radius also, and then 0. Oh, just tweak that a little bit there. And then put the 0 at the end. Okay, great. Now let's do the same for the input fields. And here I'll just do the opposite. So I'll do border radius 0, 0, border radius, just like that. And I think the last thing to do on this button here is just to tweak the alignment just a little bit. So I'm going to say right is 1.5 rem. And I'm happy with that. And I do believe that is the bulk of the work for the footer. Next up, I'm just going to add some enhancements with some hover states and things like that. So first up, let's change the color of the text when we hover over it. So we're going to change it from the kind of light white to pure white. Okay, and maybe we might need a transition for these links also. Copy and paste that from a previous style. Oh, there we go. Pop that in there. Oh, no, wait, that's on the hover. Pop it into the main link. And there we go. Okay, that looks a little bit more smooth, so happy with that. Alrighty, so it looks like we actually have a full homepage ready to go. We do need to tweak the styles for mobile for our footer, but everything looks pretty good. Yep, quite happy with that. Oh, maybe just tweak that arrow on our button just a smidge. So instead of 1.5 rem, I'll say 1.6. Yeah, okay, cool. And now that I look at the arrow a little bit more, I can see there's probably a bit more space at the bottom. So I can play around with the top value here. And 1.4 rem looks pretty good. Okay, then I'll leave it there with the arrow. So I'll pop this into our style for our after pseudo elements. And we're good to go. And the last part for the footer is the media queries. So let's test out this browser window here by minimizing it. And our button begins to get hidden. Okay, not great. So what we can say there in that case is maybe min width. No, okay. Okay, in that case, we can go up to input and we can say the width is calc 100% minus 5 rem. This should take this into account now. Get rid of that min width and change it to width. Now let's resize again. And much better. And now we can start making it nice and mobile responsive. So as before, I'm just going to copy and paste the previous media query and paste it into our little footer area. And I'm just going to change that initial value to 850 pixels. So I think the first thing I'd like to do is, as we go down the viewport, I would like to, instead of 4 columns, change them to 2 columns. So I'll simply say footer primary, and then we'll say span 3, grid column span 6. So now when we minimize the viewport, just there, we can see that now we have 2 columns. And to take it a step further, I think what I'm going to do is to completely remove the newsletter area, as I don't want to really show this on a mobile view. So as we'll have 3 columns instead of 4, I'm going to change the grid column span to 4 for 812. And then I'll simply just hide the newsletter by saying display none. And again, as we minimize the browser window / viewport, we can see that the newsletter does indeed get hidden and we have 3 columns. Now, I think I'm going to create another media query, possibly for maybe 700 pixels. I can have a look at that in a second, but let's say 700 for the moment. And then what I'm going to do is target the Get in Touch footer column and basically just make that full width. I think that could look quite nice with 2 kind of text link areas underneath. So for here, I'm going to say grid column span 12 to make it full width. Let's have a quick peek now here. And nothing seems to happen. Let's have a little peek as to why. Right, so looking at this area here, we can see that it's not taking effect. The span 4 is overriding it. Not a problem. A quick little important statement will fix that. And there we go. Okay, happy days. So now this Get in Touch area is full width. It's 12 columns in size. And now we should make the text link areas span 6. Okay, save that and let's have a little look here now. Perfect. So our Get in Touch column is full width at this breakpoint and our 2 text link areas are spans 6, so 50% each. And let's just test again. Okay, looks good. And then at the breakpoint of 700 pixels, looks good too. The only issue here now is once we go to a lower breakpoint, maybe 500 pixels, we need to make everything 1 column. So I'll say media query is 500 pixels and grid span is now 12. And that looks pretty good to me. And I think that is about it. So we have coded up our homepage. So everything is in there now as per the visual, and we have made it nice and mobile responsive. So everything is looking quite nice indeed. Right. So I think in the next video, what I'm going to probably do is basically have a look at this homepage again and go through it, check the different breakpoints for all the different blocks and stuff like that. And I think what I'm going to do is just tweak the paddings and margins just to basically refine it just that little bit more. But yep, congratulations if you've made it this far. We have finished the homepage and I'm looking forward to creating the next pages in the next few videos. So again, thanks very much for watching and catch you guys in the next one.